Something's brewing in the heart of Minneapolis, and Viking Nation better buckle up because the shockwaves hitting US Bank Stadium are about to rewrite everything we thought we knew about this Purple Army. We're talking about a former free agent disaster that's haunting another franchise, a suspended weapon returning to terrorize defenses, a quarterback revelation that has coaches comparing him to basketball legends, roster earthquakes that are reshaping the entire depth chart, and international warfare preparation that's got rivals shaking in their cleats. Each of these 5 thunderbolts carries the power to completely transform the trajectory of this Viking season. And if you think you've seen chaos before, just wait until these stories unfold. The Purple Pride is about to explode in ways that will leave Packers fans crying and Bears supporters running for cover. Because what's coming next will prove once and for all why Viking Nation remains the most feared fanbase in the frozen tundra of the NFC North. Here comes a story that will make every Vikings fan feel vindicated about dodging a massive bullet, and it starts with the defensive end, whose name still makes Viking Nation's blood boil with frustration. The whispers started circulating around the league about another injury, another setback, another chapter in what's become the most expensive medical drama in recent Vikings history. But this time, it's not Minnesota's problem anymore, and that fact alone should have every purple-blooded warrior celebrating like we just won the Super Bowl. Marcus Davenport, the $13 million disaster who haunted Viking dreams back in 2023, has officially landed on injured reserve with the Detroit Lions after suffering a chest injury. That'll sideline him for at least 4 games. The man, who was supposed to be Danielle Hunter's perfect partner in terrorizing quarterbacks, has instead become a cautionary tale about why some free agent gambles should never be taken. Remember those dark days when Quesiado Fomensa rolled the dice on Davenport's explosive athleticism, hoping that Minnesota's system could finally unlock the potential that the first-round picks once promised? Well, that gamble crashed and burned faster than a Packers playoff run, with Davenport managing just 4 games, the measly sacks, and a medical file thicker than the Minnesota phone book. The Saints fans tried to warn us, screaming about his injury history like prophets of doom. But hope clouded judgment and $13 million disappeared into the medical tent. Now he's Detroit's headache, and watching him hit injured reserve again feels like sweet revenge for every Vikings fan who watched that money vanish without a trace. The Lions thought they could succeed where Minnesota failed, bringing back the injury-prone pass rusher for another roll of the dice. But leopards don't change their spots and glass cannons don't suddenly become bulletproof. This is the same player who entered the NFL as a top 15 draft pick, blessed with freakish athleticism and measurables that made scouts drool, but cursed with a body that breaks down more often than a 1990s sedan. 7 seasons into his career, and Davenport has played more than 13 games exactly once, turning what should have been a dominant pass-rushing career into a medical marathon. That would make even the most patient franchise throw in the towel. The fact that he's on injured reserve again, while Jonathan Greenard and Andrew Van Ginkel are terrorizing NFC North quarterbacks proves that sometimes the best trades are the ones you don't make, and the best signings are the ones that walk away. Viking Nation should be sending thank you cards to every injury that kept Davenport off the field, because his absence paved the way for the pass rushing revolution we're witnessing today. If you believe the Vikings dodged the biggest bullet since Brett Favre chose green and gold, smash that like button and let the football world know that Purple Pride means learning from mistakes and building champions, not collecting expensive medical cases that drain championship dreams. The moment every Vikings fan has been circling on their calendars, like Christmas morning, has finally arrived, and the reverberations are shaking the entire NFC North to its very foundation. Word started spreading through the Vikings facility like wildfire that a certain suspended superstar was about to make his triumphant return, and suddenly the entire complexion of Minnesota's European invasion changed from concerning to absolutely terrifying for opposing defenses. Jordan Addison, the explosive playmaker who's been serving a 3-game suspension for driving under the influence, is officially back on the active roster and ready to unleash hell on international soil against Pittsburgh and Cleveland. This isn't just a simple roster move. This is the return of a weapon that caught 63 passes for 875 yards and 9 touchdowns in his sophomore season, proving that his rookie year wasn't a fluke and his ceiling remained stratospheric. The 23-year-old former Pitt superstar who fell into Minnesota's lap with the 23rd overall pick is about to remind the football worldwide first-round receivers with his combination of route running, Precision and red zone reliability don't grow on trees, but Addison's return triggered a roster earthquake that sent shockwaves through the depth chart, starting with the release of Tim Jones, a special teams contributor who logged 25 special teams snaps, but couldn't crack the offensive rotation in any meaningful way. Jones became the sacrificial lamb necessary to make room for elite talent, and while his contributions were appreciated, championship organizations make tough decisions when superior options become available. The practice squad chaos that followed Addison's activation tells the story of a franchise preparing for international warfare, with Lucky Jackson and Xavier Valade both getting their walking papers, despite flashes of potential throughout training camp and preseason action. Jackson, the 28-year-old veteran who seemed poised for a W or for roll, saw his Minnesota dreams evaporate when a series of crucial drops convinced the coaching staff that reliability trumps potential every single time. Meanwhile, the addition of running back Corey Connor to the practice squad signals that Aaron Jones' injury concerns are being taken seriously, with the undrafted rookie from LSU and Cincinnati bringing 1,560 to career rushing yards, and the kind of versatility that could prove invaluable during a grueling European road trip. These roster moves aren't random shuffling. They're calculated preparations for the kind of international showcase that could define Minnesota's season, with every decision designed to maximize talent while maintaining the depth necessary to survive back-to-back overseas battles. Carson Wentz now has his full arsenal of weapons at his disposal, with Justin Jefferson leading the receiving corps. That suddenly looks as dangerous as any unit in the NFC, and that should have Steelers and Browns defensive coordinators losing sleep over the matchup nightmares heading their way. If you're ready to watch Jordan Addison remind the world why he was a first-round pick and why the Vikings receiving corps is about to terrorize Europe, hit that subscribe button and show your purple pride, because this roster evolution is just getting started, and championship dreams are built on moves exactly like this. Something magical happened at US Bank Stadium that had Kevin O'Connell reaching for basketball analogies to describe the quarterback artistry that unfolded during Minnesota's 48-10 demolition of Cincinnati, and the comparisons are sending shockwaves through the Viking Nation faithful, who witnessed something special brewing under center. The whispers started immediately after Wentz completed 14 of 20 passes for 173 yards, and the touchdowns with a quarterback rating of 129.8, the second highest single-game rating of his entire career. But it wasn't just the numbers that had coaches and fans buzzing with excitement about what they'd witnessed. O'Connell didn't hesitate to compare Wentz to a point guard, praising his ability to see the entire field, diagnose defensive weaknesses with surgical precision, and deliver the football to areas where playmakers could maximize their explosive potential. This wasn't the erratic gunslinger who bounced between 5 different teams in 5 seasons. This was a cerebral floor general who understood exactly how to operate within Minnesota's offensive system and trusted his weapons to make plays in space. The transformation was so dramatic that it felt like watching a completely different player step into the pocket, maintaining perfect fundamentals while keeping his eyes downfield and letting the game come to him, rather than forcing throws into coverage. O'Connell as point guard comparison resonates on multiple levels, because the best point guards understand that their job isn't to dominate the basketball, but to put their teammates in positions to succeed. And that's exactly what Wentz accomplished during his Vikings debut. He found Justin Jefferson for explosive gains, connected with tight ends in the intermediate passing game, and showed the kind of pocket presence that allows offensive coordinators to dial up their entire playbook without worrying about quarterback limitations. The 32-year-old veteran arrived in Minnesota after the conclusion of training camp, joining a quarterback room that had been searching for stability behind the injured J.J. McCarthy, and his seamless integration into O'Connell's system suggests that championship-level quarterback play doesn't always require the most talented arm. Sometimes it requires the most disciplined approach, and Wentz demonstrated the kind of patience and field vision that separates game managers from game winners, especially when surrounded by the caliber of skill position talent that Minnesota has assembled. The fact that this performance came against a Cincinnati defense that had been respectable in previous weeks makes Wentz's efficiency even more impressive, proving that his success wasn't simply a product of facing inferior competition, but rather the result of preparation meeting opportunity. O'Connell's enthusiasm about Wentz's fundamentals, pocket presence, and decision-making process indicates that Minnesota may have found their bridge quarterback solution, someone capable of managing high-pressure situations while J.J. McCarthy continues his development. Behind the scenes, the timing couldn't be more perfect with back-to-back international games approaching, because European crowds are about to witness the kind of quarterback excellence that turns good offenses into unstoppable championship machines. If Carson Wentz can maintain this level of point guard precision while operating one of the NFC's most explosive offensive systems, the Vikings might have stumbled into something truly special that could carry them deep into January. If you believe Carson Wentz just announced himself as a legitimate championship quarterback, and that this point guard comparison proves the Vikings have found their field general, smash that like button and let the football world know that Purple Precision is about to take European soil by storm. The official announcement hit Viking Nation like a thunderbolt straight from Valhalla, confirming what purple-blooded warriors had been desperately hoping for since the calendar flipped to September and championship dreams began crystallizing into concrete reality. Jordan Addison's reinstatement from his 3-game suspension wasn't just a roster transaction. It was the final piece of an offensive puzzle that suddenly looks capable of terrorizing every defense from Minneapolis to the European continent and beyond. The 23-year-old weapon who torched defenses for 875 yards and 9 touchdowns during his sophomore campaign is officially back in the fold, ready to team up with Justin Jefferson in what might be the most explosive receiving tandem in the entire NFC. This return couldn't come at a more crucial moment, with the Vikings preparing for back-to-back international showcases that will determine whether this Purple Army can establish itself as a legitimate championship contender or fade into another season of missed opportunities. Addison's return creates matchup nightmares that defensive coordinators simply cannot solve, especially when you consider that opposing secondaries now have to account for Jefferson's otherworldly route-running brilliance while simultaneously tracking Addison's red zone reliability and intermediate precision. The former Pittsburgh superstar brings a skill set that perfectly complements Minnesota's offensive philosophy, offering Carson Wentz a security blanket in crucial situations while providing Kevin O'Connell with the flexibility to design plays that attack every level of the field. His 63 receptions during his sophomore season prove that he's already developed the kind of chemistry with Minnesota's offensive system that typically takes years to cultivate, and his 9 touchdown catches demonstrate the red zone reliability that separates good receivers from great ones. The fact that Addison is returning during Minnesota's most important stretch of the season speaks to the cosmic alignment of championship destiny, because elite talents returning from suspension at precisely the right moment is exactly how Super Bowl stories begin to unfold. His presence immediately elevates every other skill position player on the roster, from Yalen Naylor benefiting from reduced defensive attention to TJ Hawkinson finding more favorable matchups in the intermediate passing game. The timing of his return also coincides with Minnesota's offensive line reaching full health, creating the perfect storm of protection, weapons, and system familiarity that transforms good offenses into historically dominant units. European defenses are about to discover why Viking receiving corps with this much talent and chemistry can shred even the most disciplined game plans, especially when operated by a quarterback who's finally found his perfect system. Addison's return represents more than just getting a playmaker back. It represents the completion of an offensive identity that could carry Minnesota deep into the playoffs and potentially to the promised land of championship glory. The $14.9 million investment in his rookie contract is about to start paying dividends in ways that extend far beyond individual statistics, because championship teams are built around players who perform when the lights are brightest and the stakes are highest. If you believe Jordan Addison's return just transformed the Vikings into legitimate Super Bowl contenders, and that this receiving corps is about to rewrite the record books, hit that subscribe button and show your purple pride, because what's coming next in Europe is going to be absolutely devastating for any defense foolish enough to underestimate Viking Nation's aerial assault. The final chapter of Minnesota's roster evolution unfolded, with the surgical precision of a championship organization preparing for international warfare, and the casualties of these decisions reveal everything about the Vikings' commitment to excellence over sentiment. Tim Jones and Lucky Jackson, the players who contributed to Minnesota's depth throughout the early season, found themselves on the wrong side of championship mathematics when roster spots became precious commodities during European preparation. Jones, the 27-year-old special teams contributor who logged significant snaps in coverage units, became expendable when Jordan Addison's return created a numbers crunch that forced difficult decisions about veteran contributors versus elite talent. His 25 special teams snaps and 6 offensive touches weren't enough to survive the roster purge, proving that championship organizations prioritize upside over comfortable mediocrity when playoff positioning hangs in the balance. Lucky Jackson's release stings differently because the practice squad veteran had shown flashes of WR for potential throughout training camp, but his crucial drops during preseason games ultimately sealed his fate when reliability became the determining factor in roster construction. The 28-year-old receiver's Minnesota dreams evaporated when consistency proved more valuable than occasional brilliance, and his departure sends a clear message that championship standards don't allow for players who can't be trusted in crucial moments. The addition of Corey Connor to the practice squad tells a different story about organizational foresight and depth building, with the undrafted rookie from LSU and Cincinnati bringing 1,560 to career rushing yards and the kind of versatility that could prove invaluable if Aaron Jones's injury concerns become reality. Connor's signing represents the kind of proactive depth building that separates championship organizations from also-rans, because having quality options available when injuries inevitably strike is what allows contending teams to maintain their competitive edge throughout grueling seasons. The release of Xavier Valade from the practice squad creates room for Connor while signaling that Minnesota's running back evaluation process favors proven college production over developmental potential when immediate contribution might be necessary. These roster moves collectively demonstrate an organization that's learned from past mistakes and refuses to enter crucial games without proper depth at every position, especially with back-to-back international contests that will test every aspect of team preparation and execution. The timing of these decisions, coming just before Minnesota's departure for European competition, shows that Kevin O'Connell and his staff understand that championship windows are narrow and every roster spot must be optimized for maximum competitive advantage. Carson Wentz inherits a completely revamped supporting cast that prioritizes reliability over potential, with proven contributors surrounding him at every skill position and the kind of depth that allows offensive coordinators to maintain their aggressive play calling, regardless of injury situations. The fact that these moves were completed before international travel began shows the kind of organizational attention to detail that championship teams display when preparing for season-defining moments. European crowds are about to witness the final evolution of Minnesota's 2025 roster, a collection of players who survived the most rigorous evaluation process and earned their spots through performance rather than potential or sentiment. If you believe these roster moves prove the Vikings are serious about championship competition and that this European tour is going to showcase the final form of a Super Bowl contender, smash that subscribe button and let the football world know that Viking Nation is ready for international domination, because what happens in Dublin and London is going to echo through the rest of this championship season. Viking Nation, what we've witnessed over these past few days isn't just roster shuffling or injury upgrades from former players. It's the crystallization of championship destiny unfolding before our very eyes in the most dramatic fashion imaginable. Marcus Davenport's continued injury struggles serve as a haunting reminder of the bullet Minnesota dodged while building a pass rush that actually terrorizes quarterbacks instead of team doctors. Jordan Addison's triumphant return transforms an already dangerous receiving corps into an unstoppable aerial weapon that will haunt defensive coordinators' nightmares. From Dublin to London and beyond, Carson Wentz's point guard revelation proves that championship quarterbacks aren't always the flashiest names, or rather the most cerebral floor generals who understand how to maximize elite talent. Around them, the roster purge that cleared space for proven contributors while adding insurance policies like Corey Connor demonstrates the kind of organizational ruthlessness that separates contenders from pretenders when championship moments arrive. These aren't isolated incidents. They're interconnected chess moves that reveal a franchise finally operating with the precision and foresight that championship organizations display during their ascendant seasons. The timing of these developments, coming just before Minnesota's European invasion, feels like cosmic alignment for a fan base that's endured decades of heartbreak and near misses. We're watching the final pieces of a championship puzzle click into place with audible satisfaction. From quarterback stability to receiver depth to the kind of roster construction that survives the brutal attrition of playoff football. Every rival in the NFC North should be terrified of what's about to unfold on international soil, because the Vikings that emerge from Europe will bear little resemblance to the team that started this season searching for identity and consistency. The Packers can keep their aging quarterback and playoff disappointments. The Bears can celebrate their defensive potential while ignoring offensive limitations. And the Lions can nurse their injury-prone acquisitions back to health while watching Minnesota establish championship credibility. If you believe in the purple prophecy that's unfolding before our eyes, if you trust that these roster moves and player developments are building toward something historically special, if you're ready to witness Viking Nation claim its rightful place atop the NFC North and march towards Super Bowl glory, then prove your loyalty by smashing that like button, subscribing to this channel, and commenting your championship predictions below. The next 72 hours will determine whether this international tour becomes the launching pad for an unforgettable playoff run or just another missed opportunity in purple history. But based on everything we've seen, everything that's aligned, and everything that's coming together at precisely the right moment, this feels different than any Viking season in recent memory, and that should have every member of Viking Nation ready for the ride of their lives. Skol Vikings, and let the championship chase begin in Europe, because what happens next will echo through the frozen tundra for generations to come.